So 45, they want to determine if chocolate consumption during pregnancy had an effect on infant temperament at age 6 months. They began by asking 305 healthy pregnant women to report their chocolate consumption. 6 months after birth, the researchers asked mothers to rate their infant's temperament, including smiling, laughter, and fear. The babies were born to women who had been eating chocolate during pregnancy. The women born to women who had been eating the chocolate were found to be more active and positively reactive, a measure that the investigators said encompasses traits like smiling and laughter. Observational study or experiment? Observational study, why? And I've said that before. If it's observational study over experiment, no treatment was imposed is your answer. So even though some of them were eating chocolate and some of them weren't, they didn't force them to. They just recorded if they were or weren't. So explanatory variable here would be what? Okay, explanatory variable is, we call it factors, levels, treatments. So what is the part that is being measured to see?
The frequency of chocolate consumption.
And it's kind of generic. Yes, it's the frequency of the chocolate consumption of the pregnant women. And then we're measuring what at the end after that? Child temperament. So our response variable is child temperament. Our explanatory variable is the chocolate consumption during pregnancy. Again, this is something we've dealt with before. C is saying, does it show this? Well, what was our answer to A? Observational study. So can I prove causation? No. 46. This one is the infants, and then we followed them through their 6th year in school. And then it says the more time children spent in childcare from birth to age 4.5, the more adults tended to rate them, both at 4.5 and at kindergarten, as less likely to get along with others, more assertive, disobedient, and aggressive. Observational study or experiment? Again, observational study, no treatment was imposed. The kids were just followed and recorded what they were. What would be the explanatory variable in this instance? And it's kind of generic, but something about childcare, amount of times in childcare, amount of childcare given. And what is the response variable that we're rating? Again, not worded very well specific. And it's more specifically aggression levels that were rated by the adults. So it wasn't like self-reflection kind of thing. Again, answer to A is observational study. So C is no, because you can't do causation without an experiment. C, or 47, educator wants to compare the effectiveness of computer software for teaching biology. We've done this one as an example before. Observational study or experiment. Experiment. What is your justification?
The treatment was imposed of which type of learning style was given to students.
So the treatment was imposed by which learning style was given to each of the students. Since it was an experiment, if the group using the computer has a much higher average increased test scores than the group using the textbook, could I draw conclusions? Yes, because we did an experiment, so we could do causation. We've talked about this one before too. They matched them up, so observational study or experiment. Observational study, so could we conclude anything? No, because it's just an observational study. We can't do causation without an experiment. 49, did we do this one? Okay, I took out 1 or 2, and I couldn't remember which ones I took out. I just left them on there. Oh, I wanted to talk about it while we're here. Confounding is one of the ones that we did not write about on our sheet. Like, it's one of the ones that's missing. So it says the smaller classes in elementary school really benefit students in areas such as scores on standardized tests, staying in school, and going to college. We might do an observational study that compares students who happen to be in smaller and larger classes in their early school years, identify a lurking variable that may lead to confounding with the effects of small classes. I'm going to go back and write this stuff down, but a lurking variable is something that might have been another variable that we didn't control for that might end up impacting the response variable. And confounding is the fact that we don't know if it was because of the lurking variable or because of the variable we controlled. So here, if we did something and we were comparing smaller classes in early school years versus larger classes and trying to identify with how well they did in college, what are some things that could happen outside of our control other than just being smaller and bigger classes?
Students in smaller classes might go to private schools.
That is a big example. So like the type of school you'd go to might have smaller versus bigger classes. Like in a public school, you're going to have bigger classes. In a private school, you're going to have smaller classes. Well, are you going to have a lot of differences between public schools and private schools that are more than just the class sizes? Yes. So we wouldn't be able to tell if the difference was because of just class sizes or if the difference was because of like public-private schools. So that is confounding because we wouldn't actually be able to tell which one it comes from. Like I said, I'm going to come back and write it, but I wanted to discuss that when we're going through. All right, so this one, we're doing all the different pieces of it. Ability to grow in shade may help pines found in the dry forests of Arizona to resist drought. How well do the pines grow in shade? Investigators planted pine seedlings in a greenhouse in either full light, light reduced to 25, light reduced to 5%. In the study, they dried the young trees and weighed them. So what were our experimental units? The pine seedlings. This is not trees. This is not pines. This is pine seedlings. It very explicitly says pine seedlings here. So our explanatory variable broken down, what is the and I think the book asked it different, but I want to ask it as factors and levels. How many factors are there? One. What is it in general? Amount of light. How many factors are there? Sorry, how many levels are there? 3. Full, reduced to 25, reduced to 5%. So the treatments here, since there's just one factor, would be the full light reduced to 25%, light reduced to 5%. What is our response variable? And more specifically, dried. So it says the dried weight of the young trees. Remember, I have said that I've started taking stuff from homework because I've noticed that people are not paying attention. You can use voice over internet protocol to make long distance phone calls over the internet. How the costs work. I probably need to start to get rid of this one because it probably doesn't even make as much sense to y'all because phones are different now. So you used to have to pay difference for different times of the day you called. So some students will pay a low flat rate and others will pay higher rates at peak periods and very low rates off peak. The university is interested in the amount and time of use and the effect on the congestion of the network. So in this one, what are our experimental units? What is the smallest unit to which the treatment is applied? Students. So students living in this dorm. I think they said they only did it in this dorm. So students in this dorm are our experimental units. How many factors do we have? Just one. It's rate structure, like however they paid. We have 2 levels. One of them would be low flat rate, and then the other one would be peak at higher rates, off peak at lower rates, which would be our treatments. And our response variable here would just be amount and time of use and then the effect of congestion on the network. 53, how can we reduce the rate of refusals in telephone surveys? Most people who answer will listen to the interview's introduction before they decide if they want to kind of hang up or not. So one study made phone calls, like the whole point of their study was to see if they could keep the person to do the study. So in some calls, the interviewer gave their name. In others, they just identified the university. And in others, they identified both their name and the university. And they also, before they started, they either did or didn't offer to send a copy of the final survey results to the person. So they said initially, either we will or we won't. So how many factors are here? 2 factors are generic. So the first generic thing we control or we changed was what? Information we gave. Information we told about ourselves. What were the levels of that one? Name only, university only, or both. Our second factor was what? In general. Offering of the survey, or the final survey, and then so our levels were did or didn't. So how many treatments would there be? 6, because you would do all 3 times all 2. So we would get like their name, just their name, did offer, just their name, didn't offer, just the university did offer, and so forth. And the response variable was whether or not the interview was completed. All right, I'm going to skip 61 and come back to it. So 67. What are the 3 principles of experimental design? So this is I'm doing number 67, but what's one of the 3 principles?
Control.
What's another one?
Replication.
And randomization. And we're going to write a little bit more about this today in our notes, but I want to talk about it going over the homework problem first. So this just asked, explain the purpose of each of the 3 and describe how each of them are used in the study. So I'm going to answer B. So does daycare help lower income children stay in school and hold good jobs later in life? The project followed a group of 111 children. They're all healthy but low-income Black infants in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. All infants received nutritional supplements and help from social workers. Half were assigned at random to an intensive preschool program. So where does this part come in? Where does randomization come in? So in your answer, if you don't have the word assigned, you would be counted off because the AP exam is very particular about the difference between random assignment and random selection. So they were randomly assigned to either take the intensive after school or preschool program or not. Replication, where did this come in? Where does replication come in?
It was performed on 111 children.
So each group has over 50 in them. So this is where the replication is coming into play. Control is 2 things. One aspect of control is they control what? One of them is just control, and the other one is a control group. Where is a control group in this one? What does this imply? The other half weren't, which means they were what? The control group. So the half that didn't get assigned to an intensive preschool program, ended up being the control group. And then this entire section, all of this is laying out what? All of those things are things that we controlled. So control comes in two aspects, the elements you controlled and a control group. This one presented both of those things. And I'm going to answer the part A in our notes, but I want to do 61 first. So here, doctors identify chronic tension type headaches as headaches that occur almost daily for at least 6 months. Can antidepressant medications, or stress management training reduce the number and severity of those headaches? Are both together more effective than either alone? Investigators compared 4 treatments: antidepressant alone, placebo alone, antidepressant plus stress management, placebo plus stress management. The headache sufferers named in the following table have agreed to participate in the study. What's the main thing I need right here to start with? What do I need to know about this? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have how many? If it asks you to do this, which is also what I told you on Friday that this problem was going to be, you have to draw it out. So what is our population? A little bit more specific. The chronic headache sufferers. So where do I start? What do I need to write there? Did I care about anything about these people other than the fact they had headaches before I started? No. So I go straight from here to what? Random assignment. So this means I'm going to come back and explain that in detail later. So now that I'm taking my group and going straight into random assignment, how many do I split off of from here? So this is, like I said on Friday, this is where I would come back somewhere and be like, and then write them all out so that within my chart here, I'm not going to have to write out all that. So I would choose to do this first. And if I did that, then I could just write. And what would I need to write with that? And then I could do treatment 2. Now, if you just write treatment 1 and treatment 2, and I do not get this, then I'm counting off for all of writing treatment 1 and treatment 2 kind of stuff because I don't have a clue what you mean by that. So you're writing all 4 of these out. And then what do I do here? Once I've written treatment 3 and treatment 4. One word. Compare. In general, what am I comparing? In general, for every problem, what is my generic that goes here? Response variable. What was my response variable?
Number and intensity.
So compare response variable. What? What goes after that? Between, what can we call this in general? Like if I said, what is our factor? What would our factor be here? Medicine options. So that's your design of the experiment, including your entire written part on random assignment. So it gave you a list of names. So what was probably going to be, what would it probably expect you to do with those names? Which they might already be. Probably put them in alphabetical order. So alphabetical order, and you could go from there. This one did not tell you how you needed to do this. If it didn't tell you how to do it, I would pretty much always go with the idea of names in a hat. So it's already in alphabetical order, but you're not actually going to have to do this one. It said then carry out your interim assignment, which you could have. So I would write all 36 names on equal size slips of paper, right? One person's name on each of 36 same size slips of paper. Place into a hat, mix them up without looking. So my important things here are same size, one on each, mix them up, don't look. How do I select them? One at a time. So selecting one at a time until 9 have been selected. Do what with those 9? Assign them to treatment 1. What do I definitely need to say I do with those 9? Leave them out. Don't put them back. Continue drawing. What? Next. Keep drawing. Next. Next 9, go to treatment 2, and then so forth. Questions on that?